Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Hey now, what's going on? Thanks for tuning in today to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Bryan here with you again. Glad everybody can join me today. Hope everyone's doing well. Hope everyone enjoyed their weekend. Okay, there's a lot to talk about in the NFL right now. We're about a couple of days away post NFL schedule release, and the scheduled games always follow. Now, the scheduled game always follows the schedule release, and we're not going to play that game. We're just not, no matter how many people want to play. We're going to get into a lot regarding the NFL. We're breaking down more of the NFL schedule and how it favors some teams and how it doesn't favor other teams. Many camps are opening up today, and we have new faces in new places. We have familiar faces in new places as well. We're going to break down some of the experts' so-called win totals, and stick around to the end. We're going to get into how the NFL is the best drama series on television right now. Forget the Kardashians, forget all those drama reality series. We're going to talk about how the NFL is the best and produces the most drama out of any series. Forget all these other reality series. You got to watch the NFL for the best drama. It's the GSMC Football Podcast. Bryan here with you today. Glad you can join me. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Let's get straight into it, shall we? There's going to be a lot to talk about, and there's going to be so much fun we can get into today. So let's get straight into it. We're in the time in the NFL where minicamp is opening up. We're past the schedule release. Rookies are in minicamp, and we get to see, finally, these rookies in pads, in helmets, in their respected jerseys. No more Photoshop of, oh, Mac Jones is going to go to the 49ers. Trevor Lawrence in a Jaguars uniform. No more Photoshops. No more of that. We finally get the players actually in the jerseys. And you know what? With rookies in minicamp, that always comes prediction season. And you know what? With the NFL schedule release prediction season, you can't trust it. You just can't. A lot of opinions out there where rookies hit the field, and a lot of so-called, GOATs. He's going to be the greatest of all time. He's going to lead our team to our franchise quarterback. He's going to be the one person who's going to be that superstar for us. You can't trust it, people. You don't know. And you can't trust these experts because just like mock drafts, just like draft day grades, and just like win totals, you can't trust these experts because they have no idea. They have no idea, and we don't know. We can't give a biased judgment because one team drafted a quarterback that they loved in college, and one team drafted somebody who had no idea who they were in college. And fans make these wild accusations and wild assumptions being saying, oh, just because he went to Clemson and he went to North Dakota State, I'm going to take the guy over Clemson over North Dakota State all day, every day. You have no idea. We have no idea if Trevor Lawrence is going to be great in that system in Jacksonville, but we have no idea if Trey Lance is going to be great in San Francisco. But that's the thing I love about sports, and that's the thing we love about sports. The thing is that we don't know what's going to happen, and that's why we watch. We watch sports because we have no idea, and we just love the excitement. We love the anticipation. We love the thrill of watching sports, especially football. But like I mentioned before, some teams were getting bashed by draft experts for drafting certain guys who they didn't believe who would be NFL superstar talent. But I thought some teams had a fantastic draft who are getting bashed right now. For example, take the Carolina Panthers. They had an eventful offseason. They traded Teddy Bridgewater to Denver and bring in Sam Darnold, the number 3 pick in 2018 draft from the New York Jets. Now, sometimes guys just need a new change of scenery. I mean, it helps when you get a position players like Christian McCaffrey, Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, and others on your squad. But they also had a very underrated draft this season. Now, we don't know how these guys are going to pan out. We don't know how these guys are going to pan out in the draft specifically for years to come. We can't give unbiased judgments, and we can't give judgments when it comes to 2 to 3 years down the road. We can't judge them on their rookie seasons. It's just not going to happen. Yeah, they can win the Rookie of the Year award. They can go 11-5 this season, have a great season, but we don't know down the future if they're going to be great players who have longevity in this league. We just don't know, and we have to give these people time. Now, we won't know who won the draft this year for years to come. But I loved some of the additions that the Carolina Panthers made in this year's draft. Drafting J.C. Horn, Terrace Marshall, Tommy Tremble, who's an underrated tight end, Chuba Hubbard, who's an electric halfback, and Keith Taylor. Now pair those with guys like Christian McCaffrey, Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, and the number 3 pick, Sam Darnold, who still has a lot to prove and who has great talent, who just needed to change its scenery. They have some very underrated talent on that squad. But going back to Sam Darnold, a new change of scenery can do wonders for a lot of people. You know, it's like when you get out of a bad relationship. We've all been there. We were all with somebody who isn't good for us. But we don't see it because we have blinders on right now. We don't see it. Especially in high school, especially in middle school. If you have relationships in middle school. But our friends and family tell us to get out of it, but they just don't see it. And you just don't see it. Then you finally break it off, and it's like a breath of fresh air. You feel a whole lot better about yourself. You feel a whole lot calmer. You have a weight lifted off your shoulders. You get out of that bad relationship, and you're a lot happier. The sky's brighter, food tastes better, music sounds better, and you're just happy again. And then you find that one person who just makes you happy. And you get into a new relationship, and everything's just better again. That's what it's like for Sam Darnold right now. He just got out of a toxic relationship with the New York Jets, one of the worst franchises within the last 10 to 20 years. He just got out of that bad relationship, and now he's with Carolina. He has a new lease on life. Just imagine getting out of a toxic relationship in New York, going down south, away from the Jets media. He can just breathe again and just play football like he did when he was younger. Like he did when he was at USC, when he was putting up eye-popping numbers that made him the number 3 pick in the draft. He can just focus on football again. Now, it's hard being a quarterback in this league. You can ask any other quarterback who's been in that situation, who's a top pick, and who hasn't succeeded. They can tell you that, A, it's not easy being the leader of the team, especially in New York when you have that daunting media who just pressuring you every single game. Like they're just nitpicking you every time. And any other NFL quarterback can tell you it's hard in this league when you have to face media when you're not producing. Just talk to any other quarterback who wasn't a producing quarterback in this league. Just talk to any quarterback who didn't make it in New York. You can talk to Chad Pennington. You can talk to Tim Tebow, who we're going to get into in the next segment because there's crazy stories and I can't believe this is happening. But you can talk to any other quarterback who wasn't successful, especially in the New York media. And you can talk to one who was. Look at Eli Manning, for example. He had his whole career in New York, and he had to deal with that New York media. And Sam Darnold should probably take notes from him because, A, he had a successful career winning 2 Super Bowls, being arguably the greatest quarterback of all time in Tom Brady in both of them, and outplaying him, but dealing with the frustrations and dealing with the struggles of leading the league in picks multiple years. And being the number 1 draft pick and not being able to produce and being traded and being able to retire as one team. That's special, but There were some difficulties along the way, and there were some struggles. And you know what? You can tell this to Zach Wilson, who just got drafted by the Jets. He's probably not going to last in New York within like the first 4 years because he just doesn't have the situation, and he doesn't have the players around him like other people do, and it's going to be rough for him. And if I was a Zach Wilson fan, if I was a family member of his, like his mom, who honestly had a crazy rant and was bashed on social media earlier this week, but if I was him, I'd be wanting to get the first flight out of there because honestly, they don't have the greatest roster. But it was great for Sam Darnold, and I'm excited to see him actually be able to thrive in Carolina. And I'm excited to see him get out of that toxic relationship in New York. He's going down south, away from the New York Jets media. He can just breathe again. It's also nice to have great position players around him like Christian McCaffrey, Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, and Tommy Tremble, who's going to be a nice addition to the offense. If I was people down in the NFC South, I would look out for Carolina because they're going to be scary this year. Very underrated team no one is talking about. No one's talking about Carolina. Everyone's talking about Tampa Bay in the NFC South. They're also talking about how Drew Brees and how he retired and how New Orleans is going to look without Drew. They're still going to have the same great players in Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, Taysom Hill. I don't know if he can lead the way, but they might have Jameis Winston starting. I don't know. I can see Jameis starting there. But you're also talking about the draft that Atlanta had, and you can also talk about Julio, Kyle Pitts with the number 4 pick this year, and Calvin Ridley on the same team. They're going to be scary. But there's a lot of points. There are a lot of players who can score points for the NFC South. And it's going to be interesting to see how they all mesh together and how they compete. The NFC South is going to be a Wild West shootout because there's a lot of weapons on offense. And there's some great defenses there too. New Orleans has a great defense. Tampa Bay has a great defense. We saw that in the Super Bowl against one of the best offenses we've ever seen in the NFL in the Kansas City Chiefs. And we'll talk about them more later. But there's a lot of firepower in the NFC South. I wouldn't be surprised if each one of those teams scores more than 35 points a game this year. I can see Atlanta scoring 50 to 55 if they keep Julio Jones, Kyle Pitts, who's a monster, and they keep Calvin Ridley. With Matt Ryan, if they have him healthy, watch out. NFC South is going to be a powerhouse of offense. It's going to be a high-flying aerial attack with every team, and I'm excited to see it. But look out for Carolina. They're going to be interesting to see this year. I'm interested to see how Sam Darnold's going to handle all this pressure, and this pressure lifted off his shoulders. Another team that people aren't talking about in terms of the NFL draft and how they produced within the NFL draft is the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, we all know losing in the Super Bowl last year was tough. It's been a wild ride for the Kansas City the past couple years. You had it winning it all, coming back from a 10-point deficit against the San Francisco 49ers in 2019 in Miami for a storybook ending for winning it all in 2019, to getting to the mountaintop again, to losing it all in honestly embarrassing fashion because they got dominated the whole game by Tampa Bay last year in the COVID-19 Super Bowl. You also had the pandemic season, and you had everything that went on with that, and they had issues all over the place, and it was rough for them. It's been a wild ride. It's been a roller coaster ride for the Kansas City Chiefs. You also have to deal with the Super Bowl hangover or the Super Bowl curse. But when they entered the draft, everything was hunky-dory for them. Kansas City got some very underrated players. It's crazy to me that when you come from a Super Bowl and you lose, and you go into this year's draft, and you draft some players that really can plug and play guys who can help you right now, and you get better after the draft, it's unheard of. It really is. Because you're drafting very low, and you have to do a great job scouting. You have to do a great job with player interviews. And they got some very underrated talent. I like Nick Bolton, the tackling machine out of Missouri. He was that whole defense in the SEC for Missouri. You got Trey Smith, a bulldozer of a guard out of Tennessee in the 6th round. You also have Creed Humphreys, a great defensive end who can come off the edge and who can get to the passer, Kansas City stole during the draft. They basically pulled an Ocean's 11, honestly. They walked into the casino on draft night. They went straight to the vault. They opened it up. They took out everything. And they walked out with a smile on the face and said, okay, thank you very much. We'll be here for the season. We'll be ready. And we're going to dominate you. And walked out of the casino. Now, Trey Smith, he has first-round talent potential. He's going to start for Kansas City, one of their draft picks. Humphreys, he's a plug-and-play guy. He can help you right away. Now, when I mean plug-and-play is, okay, you draft him, you plug him in the offense or the defense, and then he produces for you right away. Now, Nick Bolton might be the best defensive player in this draft, in my opinion. Now, Bolton doesn't have the intangibles that Michael Parsons had at Penn State, the linebacker, and that's why he didn't go as high to Dallas in the first round. But he's got the will. He's got the intelligence. And he's got the tenacity. And go look at his tape in Missouri. Just go look at it, and the first play you'll see, you can see it right away. Bolton was all over the field for Missouri, and that's why he had one of the best defensive careers in the SEC. Now, you can talk about Alabama, you can talk about Georgia as being top-rated defensive teams in the SEC. But Missouri, quietly, the last couple years, they had a great defense. And go look at their draft picks. They've had some draft picks who are still in this league. And honestly, if you're Kansas City, your deal is, you know what, we're just going to take the best players from the best teams in the SEC, the best conference in college football, which is kind of like the minor leagues for the NFL. And we'll get more into that because I don't know why the NFL doesn't have a minor league, but we'll get more into that in other segments. But Nick Bolton out of Missouri and all these other defensive players out of Missouri coming in the later rounds, they will be plug-and-play guys. They will help you produce right away. It's going to be interesting to see how Kansas City responds this year, though. Losing the Super Bowl the previous year can be tough. Many people don't say it. It's like an unwritten rule, but it's in their minds. All this year, they're going to be thinking about how Tom Brady destroyed them. How Shaq Barrett destroyed them. It's going to be interesting to see how they recover from that horrible Super Bowl loss last year. Now, the Super Bowl curse, it's real. Guys, it's real and you know it. The Super Bowl hangover is real too. But this Kansas City Chiefs team has a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. They upgraded their defensive line and their offensive line during this free agency by adding free agents out the galore like Orlando Brown Jr. to protect Patrick Mahomes. Now, we all saw the Super Bowl versus the Bucs last year, and I know you did because it was honestly the first big event from this COVID-riddled season. We all saw that. We all saw Patrick Mahomes running for his life. We all saw it, but it wasn't his fault. We all saw guys like Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, Makar Harlan Jr. drop easy passes that they usually catch, that they usually make. They missed easy plays, easy miscues, because the Tampa Bay's defense was so ferocious that night. And we all saw it. But they have to stay healthy. Every team has to stay healthy. You look at the San Francisco 49ers last year. They had $82 million on the roster, on injured reserve. Now, if you take most of those players on Kansas City and say you put Mahomes, Kelce, Hill, Coleman Jr., and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, even Le'Veon Bell on injured reserve this year, they're not going to do anything. They're not. It just goes to show that talent trumps anything. If you have talent on the field, you're going to be able to win. You're going to be able to produce success on the field of play. And it's going to be simple as that. If you don't have talent, you're not going to do well. You're going to be number 2, number 3, number 4 in the draft next year. So that just means sometimes coaches can do a lot of things. Sometimes schemes can play a part. But the most important thing is talent trumps everything. It's a talent-driven league. You can see that in any other sport. You can see that in basketball. You can see that in hockey. You can see that in baseball. If you don't have the talent on the field, you're not going to be able to produce. Yeah, these coaches who have rings right now can say, oh, it was because of me, I drew up a great scheme. No, you didn't have talent on the field. If you don't have talent on the field, you're not going to be able to praise yourself. You're not going to be able to praise yourself as a coach, as a GM. Just look at New England. They didn't have as great as talent as they used to have, and they didn't make the playoffs last year. And then you see Tom Brady go to a different squad in Tampa Bay and bring his buddy Rob Gronkowski and win a Super Bowl the previous year, within the first year in Tampa Bay system. It just goes to show that talent trumps everything in sports. Not just in football, but in every sport. If you don't have the talent on the field, you're not going to be able to win. Simple as that. And I look at Kansas City, and they have the talent. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Le'Veon Bell. These are household names in the NFL. Everybody knows these players because they produce on the field of play. These guys are winners. And if they're not going to have the firepower on the field, they're not going to do well. It's going to be interesting to see how they bounce back from last season's humiliating loss in the Super Bowl. You know what else is going to be interesting? To see if Tim Tebow is actually going to get a shot in the NFL again. We're going to talk Tebow and more of the NFL coming up on the other side. It's the GSMC Football Podcast. Bryan here with you again. Stay tuned.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Hey now, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. Bryan here with you again. Glad you could be here with us. Now we're post NFL schedule release day. Minicamp is just underway. New faces and new places, familiar faces and new places. It's going to be interesting to see how this season's going to kick off. And this off season is winding down. But like I mentioned before, change in scenery is good. And the NFL draft secrets and late round gems are going to be producing in NFL minicamps. You can find a lot of great late round draft picks, a lot of great late round draft gems in the offseason with undrafted players as well. You can find a lot of people in this draft who are late round draft picks and late round gems who will produce, who will be plug and play guys for your teams. Now teams, people who aren't talking about, the Carolina Panthers, and the Super Bowl curse of the Kansas City Chiefs, they actually got better in the draft. And stick around to the end, I'll give you my thoughts on how the NFL is the best drama series going on television right now. It's the GSMC Football Podcast. Bryan here with you. Hope everyone is well. Glad you could be here with us. But let's get back to what we mentioned earlier about the Kansas City Chiefs, and let's get into my closing thoughts about them. This Kansas City Chiefs team has a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. They upgraded their offensive line during the offseason with free agent frenzies and free agent additions like Orlando Brown Jr. and Chris Long. We all saw the Super Bowl versus the Bucs, like I mentioned before. Patrick Mahomes was running for his life, but they got better on defense. And they added some much-needed pass rush with Kanda. They just have to stay healthy, just like everybody else in the league. Healthy guys, healthy players win you games. They have the talent. Mahomes, Kelce, Hill, Coleman Jr., Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Le'Veon Bell. They have the talent to make a deep push in the NFL and to make a deep push for that playoff again and for the Super Bowl again. They have the offensive firepower. Andy Reid calling plays is a genius. They have all the talent in the world. They just have to stay healthy. Just look at the San Francisco 49ers. They weren't able to stay healthy, and they were horrible. But they just have to stay healthy. Can they break the Super Bowl curse? I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Now, like I mentioned earlier, let's talk some Tebow. Now, I know people are probably disgruntled and they don't want to talk Tebow, but let's talk some Tebow and let's actually rationally talk about it because it doesn't make sense to me. Now, ever since the NFL draft ended, the update from the NFL draft guru Ian Rappaport from the NFL Network suggested Tim Tebow coming to make a comeback in the NFL after a long hiatus, after his time with minor league baseball. Now, people are saying that he's coming back. This is one of the biggest and most talked about storylines in the NFL right now, not named Rodgers, regarding a player. But pump the brakes. Pump the brakes on the comeback. I just don't see how it's going to work. Let's look at the facts. This man's trying to make a comeback in the NFL. He's been out of the league for 9 to 10 years. Last game he played was back in 2012, when he was a quarterback. Not a very good one, might I add. He wasn't a great quarterback. He had a horrible throwing motion. His accuracy was subpar at best. He got cut from minor league baseball, and he wants to make a comeback playing in the NFL. Now, I know we all want to have that one last shining moment to say we're all great. We were great back when we were young. But this guy's 33, and he's trying to make a comeback in the league after his last game was in 2012. Now, if I were a player, especially in the NFL, especially if I were drafted recently, particularly one who's drafted in the first round, and I saw this guy in the locker room, I'd be questioning my team's judgment. I really would. I think they care if he's in the locker room. I do. Honestly, they could say in the media, nah, it's a great storyline. He wants to, cover his dreams again. He wants to be able to produce in the NFL. But I think they really care what's going on. Deep down inside, in closed-door situation, they say that they're going to be pissed if this guy makes a team. I'd be questioning my team's judgment. Now, I commend him for trying. I commend him for making a comeback. It's hard for some players. It's hard for all of us. Now, if you've played football, if you played any sport, and you want to make a comeback, and you haven't done it in a year or two, not 10 years, it's going to be difficult. Especially for those people who've been out of the league for 10 years. I just can't get over the fact he hasn't played for 10 straight years. Now, I know I sound like a broken record, but I just don't see how, though. I commend him for having a great network. Now, I've always heard networking from my parents, especially as a kid. You don't want to burn bridges. Now, my parents would harp on networking all day, every day. And I've hated that for them. But you know what? I guess they have a point. I guess it makes the world go round. Networking. I know, it's crazy. But it's hard to see this man make a 53-man roster in the NFL. Do you realize one spot on a 53-man roster is so valuable in the NFL? People would literally kill to have a spot for a chance to go back in the NFL on a 53-man roster. Now, will this guy do the little things in football? Because honestly, in football, it's all about the little things, especially in life. You can make that a case in life. It's about the little things in life, especially in football. Now, when I mean the little things, will this guy bring value to the roster by doing the little things? If some coach asks him, can you cover punts? Can you hold for a kicker? Can you block on PAT attempts? Can you catch a 5-yard out on 4th and 3 in a crucial time during a playoff game? During a regular season, are you going to want to go through training camp as a tight end? Not to mention, he was a quarterback. Are you going to want to change positions? Are you going to want to be able to go through the heat of Jacksonville during the summer, the heat of Florida, and be able to do these little things that some players don't want to do? Are you going to be able to do the little things? Now, I don't see how being part of a 53-man roster for the Jacksonville Jaguars, I don't see how Tim Tebow is going to be feasible for this franchise. We're talking about the National Football League here, people. We aren't talking about college football. We aren't talking about beer league. We're talking about the National Football League. I have to ask, why? Mr. Khan, the owner of the Jags, is worth $8 billion. Billion with a B. Just because you want to sell jerseys or get preseason tickets, and just because you want good publicity around your team regarding a guy who's trying to make a comeback, I just don't see how it's feasible for the Jacksonville Jaguars to bring him in. The NFL doesn't need a sideshow. The NFL does not need a side hustle. It's the National Football League for a reason. It's the king of professional sports in America. You got teams who sell themselves. When you talk about the San Francisco 49ers, when you talk about the Dallas Cowboys, when you talk about the New England Patriots, these teams who aren't even producing on the field right now are outbeating competitors in different franchises, in different sports. The NFL is outcompeting these other teams who are playing NBA playoffs in the upcoming weeks, who are playing meaningful games in Major League Baseball. The NFL doesn't need a sideshow, and it doesn't need a guy who comes into the locker room and tries to make a team who hasn't played in 10 years. They don't need that sideshow. They don't need that publicity because it's the NFL. It's the National Football League for a reason. It's been around for decades. It can sell itself, and it does just fine. And you know what? The NFL will do just fine without Tim Tebow. But it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. Hey, if you want to pay your head coach $15 million to run the show, then by all means, let him run the show. If he wants to bring in a guy who hasn't played in 10 years to play a different position, which is very difficult, then go ahead, by all means. Do whatever you want. You're going to pay $15 million, you're going to be like John Gruden, and you're going to be out in a couple years, and you're going to have fans pissed. I just don't see how it's going to be feasible for the Jacksonville Jaguars to bring this guy in. But it's still the Jags. It's still one out of 32 teams in the most popular sport in Western American professional sports, on the Western side. With all this talk about a comeback, he's still going to try to play a position he has never played before in a real-life game. I keep on harping on this. The last time he played a game was in 2012 for the New York Jets. He was a quarterback then. Tim Tebow was a quarterback then. The former quarterback and minor league baseball player is going to try to play tight end in the National Football League? Now, the game has changed over the last 10 years in the NFL. Since the last time he played against the Bills in 2012 to now in 2021, the game has changed. Especially at the tight end position. Especially at that position. You got guys coming in this league like Kyle Pitts. Guys who are monsters in college at the tight end position. Guys who are 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", 250, 260, who runs 4'5", who can catch, who can block. He's going to be that new guy in the NFL for tight end. He's going to be that new guy we're talking about. He's going to be up there with the Travis Kelce's, with the George Kittles, with the Noah Fants out of Denver. He's going to be up there. And you're telling me Tim Tebow is going to try to compete with him? I don't realize how it's going to happen. But do you realize how hard it is to block people in the game of football? Blocking people is hard. It just is. And learning how to block people is even harder than actually blocking people. Now, a lot of people don't want to do it. A lot of people don't want to block. And that's why football is not for everybody. Because you're going to have to sacrifice your body while you block. Especially tight ends. Tight ends don't want to block in the league. Tight ends, all they want to do... I'm not going to say any names. Travis Kelce. But some tight ends just want to catch a ball and look fancy and catch one-handed passes. And you have guys like George Kittle who love to put his hand in the dirt. And you have guys who love to block and say, run it again, and I want to block people. But some NFL tight ends don't want to block. We all see the wide receivers don't want to block. It's part of the game, though. Blocking is a crucial part of the game. Now, I've played tight end in college for 2 years, and I know blocking is a hard job. I've witnessed it. I'm a first-hand witness. I've gone against guys who are 35, 45 pounds bigger than me, who run a 4.5, and who just flatten me when I tried to block them. Linebackers, safeties, and huge defensive ends. But it's not easy. It's hard. It's hard to block people. And you know what? Blocking is a part of the game. It's probably the most crucial part of the game. Every position player on offense, I don't care if you're a halfback, if you're a fullback, if you're a tight end, and if you're in the offensive line. Now, we can go on the field and we can do blocking drills. We can go to the shoots. We can talk about hand placing. We can talk about pushing the sleds. We can work the pass sets. We can work the T-board left. We can work T-board right. We can use explosive footsteps. We can use first steps explosiveness. We can use all these fundamentals and all these techniques to help you block better, but that's still not going to help. Especially in a matter of 6 months. You're not going to learn how to block somebody within 6 months to try to get ready for the National Football League. That's crazy. Now, I'll always take this to the grave with me. The only way you truly learn how to block is going out and doing it in a full-speed game, trying to block somebody opposite you, mano-a-mano, and try to block that guy coming full speed who's trying to make you look bad, who's trying to embarrass you. It's hard. It's not easy. It's not for the faint of heart. And it's the only way to do that. The only way to do that is the way to develop players blocking you, coming at you full speed is the only way to help you with blocking. I don't care if you're a fullback, if you're a halfback, if you're a tight end, and if you're part of the offensive line. You have to understand that full speed blocking is the only way you're going to be able to do that, especially in practice. And, we keep on getting away from full practices in the NFL, in college, in high school. The practices in shells, we keep getting away from those practices. And it's going to be hard to develop those skills if you take away from those practices. You're not going to be able to block properly. You're not going to be able to say, hey, here's the proper hand placement. Here's the proper first step. Here's the proper head placement. Go out and block that guy. It's not going to happen in the game. You're going to look like a fool trying to go out and block a 250-pound to 275-pound defensive end coming at you full speed if you haven't done it before within the last 10 years. That's crazy to me. Now it's the wave of the future of, we're going to limit the hits in practice and we're going to limit the padded practice and the full squad practices and we're going to try to separate everybody to not get people injured. That's not the game. That's not how you're going to be able to develop those blocking skills that you're going to need in the game. You're telling me you're going to develop within the game of football and not have blocking and not practice blocking during practices? That's crazy to me. And that just doesn't seem feasible. It doesn't seem like a good way to develop players. Now, people can talk about the muscle memory that people have within blocking, like, I've done it before. I'm a little rusty. I need to get back on the shoots and I need to get back to hitting people. Yeah, muscle memory is one thing, but when you've never done it, when you're a quarterback and you try to change positions, it's a whole lot more difficult. Trying to block somebody, full speed, coming out to you, trying to embarrass you. And I just don't see how it's going to happen. I really don't. And you know what? We're in this new age of, we got to limit the hits in practice. That's not going to help either. You're going to have to practice this, and you're going to have to practice it full speed because blocking isn't easy. And it's just not feasible if you're not practicing blocking. It's simple as that. It's simple as that. Now, it's a nice pipe dream to think, Tim Tebow is going to come back. He's going to play tight end in the National Football League, and he's going to actually change. He changed his mind. He doesn't want to play quarterback anymore. He wants to play tight end. It's a nice pipe dream. It is. But I find it hard for this guy. And I find it hard for this guy to actually produce in this fall. It's going to be difficult to watch this guy produce on the field in the fall. I just don't see it. I got to question the wisdom of the whole situation. Now, you can talk about how it might be good for them, but is there any upside? Is there any upside for Tim Tebow actually being on the Jaguars? What's the upside? Is there a downside? Well, people say there is no downside, and I've heard that a lot, but there's a major following for this guy. He's a former Heisman Trophy winner, former two-time national championship winner in college football with Urban Meyer, who's now the head coach. Now, every guy in that locker room knows that there are people in that locker room when it comes to spring training, when it comes to minicamp, who don't belong, who get an unfair shot. They know there's a guy who gets a shot who doesn't deserve one. Now, Tebow's that guy who's going to get a shot, apparently. That's what I'm hearing. Who's going to get a shot who doesn't deserve it. And you know what? That's going to make for some tension in the locker room. It's just a matter of time if anyone in that locker room, anyone on that team calls them out. It doesn't have to be a veteran. It could be a rookie. It could be a coach. Whether it's a player or a fan, somebody in the media, someone's going to call him out who says, you know what? Hey, Tim, this story's great and all, but I don't think you deserve a shot. Why should you deserve a shot before somebody who actually plays the position of tight end? You're telling me you're going to compete with Kyle Pitts? You're going to compete with George Kittle? You're going to compete with Travis Kelce, Noah Fant in the tight end position in the NFL this year? You're going to be able to block a defensive end coming straight at you? I just don't see it. Everyone in that locker room is going to look at him once he enters and say, really? This guy? Are you kidding me? He hasn't played football in 10 years. I'm waiting here to get my shot as an undrafted rookie, and you're going to bring someone in who hasn't played in 10 years? There's a wisdom judgment. There's a judgment of wisdom that I see within the Jacksonville Jaguars that is lacking. Is someone going to have the audacity to call out Tim Tebow and say, you don't deserve a shot because you haven't played and you're just a publicity stunt? Now, teams should be looking for the future like they do in the draft. They should be looking for the future, and I understand we can learn from the past, and we have to learn from the past, but you need to look to the future. Signing Tim Tebow is looking and pretending that, the glory days are going to be back again. No, I don't see it. You got to look to the future. Now, I'm not sure if y'all saw this, but in college football recently, a couple months back, some teams are looking towards the future and some teams are using social media and using technology for the future to enhance their squad. And I thought this was awesome. I thought this was really great, and this is a storyline that could be seen down the road and could be a huge impact in the way football, especially in the NFL and especially in college football, is treated. The way we treat football within social media and the way we use social media to have the image and likeness of our players is going to be a huge impact. And this one team, this one school, is doing a great job, and if we see them being successful, now some of you might heard of this school, but if we see this small-time school being able to be successful, especially in college football, and go far in the college football playoff, then it's going to be interesting to see how other schools are going to take what this school did. It's interesting to see, and you know what? We're going to talk about it more in this school and the landscape of football in general coming up on the other side. So if you love college football, you're going to want to stick around for this. Stay tuned.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. Hope everyone's doing well. Hope everyone enjoyed their weekend. It's Monday. I know. You can do this, though. So there's a lot to talk about within the football world. There's a lot to talk about within the world in general, but especially within the sports world. We got so many things ramping up, especially in the football world, with NFL, and in college football. So in previous segments, we got into the post-NFL draft and post-NFL draft schedule release We talked all about the Tim Tebow story. We talked about how it's not going to be feasible for some teams like the Jacksonville Jaguars, like some teams to bring in a guy who's 10 years out of his football playing career to come back and play a totally different position that he ever did. That's crazy to me. Teams are looking towards the future. We can learn from our past. We can. That's what we have to do as a society. We have to learn from our past. We have to learn from the COVID-19 pandemic we are in right now. We have to learn from our mistakes. But we need to look to the future as well. We need to see how we can be better as a people, as a future. And NFL teams and professional sports teams are looking for the future. So like I said before, there's a lot to talk about in the NFL. And there's a lot to talk about within the college football rankings as well. Now, I'm not sure if y'all saw this or if y'all are college football fans, but I'm a huge college football fan, and I know a lot of you are college football fans. But did you see what happened in college football, in the college football landscape over the past couple weeks and months? There's like a shift in ideologies. Now, this story might be a low-key story, but it's a major story in my mind, especially in the college football rankings, in the college football landscape. Did you see what happened at the spring game of the UCF, the Central Florida game, spring game? Something really interesting happened. So during the spring game, if you're not aware, if you don't follow college football like I do religiously, or you don't follow spring games like some of us do, they had the players' Twitter handles on the back of their jerseys. So it was bold letters, bold white letters for their black UCF jerseys. They had the Twitter handles on the back where their names are, where their last names usually are, and it was crazy to see. It was pretty cool though. I got a good laugh out of it and a good chuckle over it. It just really interests me. That's how college football is moving towards the future. The future is with social media. The future is with technology. And that's how some organizations and some teams are moving towards the future, and they're looking towards the future. And I commend them. Great job. Great job with Gus Malzahn, the head coach of the University of Central Florida. Great job with their football team, and great job because not only does it help the publicity of the school, it also helps the publicity of college football, and it helps the publicity of the UCF football team. He's all in. He's all in with the name, the image, and the likeness that we talked about earlier. But he's all in. I think it's great. I think it's great for so many reasons. A, he knows a lot of players are on social media. And the only people who really have a say in when it comes to recruiting is the physical players. You have a lot of players who are looking to be big-time recruits. They're all on social media. They're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I don't know if Facebook's used anymore, but Snapchat, TikTok. You have all these social media platforms that you can go on to express who you are, to get your image and likeness and brand, and to be able to branch out. And he's seeing something, a new wave is coming. A new generation of social media is coming, and it's affecting sports. It's affecting football, baseball, basketball, soccer, hockey. It's affecting these college athletes, and it's affecting these pro athletes to have their brand, and it's great. It's great because you got a young alumni base who are basically willing and ready to do anything on social media at the drop of a hat. What can I go that can make me viral? How can I get my name out there? Everybody has a smartphone now these days. It's the 2021. It's the year 2021, and everybody is on social media. If you're not, you're living under a rock. You basically are. But B, it's great for recruiting, like I mentioned. A lot of players are going to want to play for UCF now. A lot of these big-time athletes, these next great generational athletes who are playing college football right now, a lot of them are going to want to play for Gus Malzahn at UCF because he's leading the way for the future of college football. And the future is digital. I know that might sound like a huge cliche, but 20, 30 years down the line, we're going to be talking about how this has changed the landscape of college football as a whole. Now, they're doing it all when it comes to recruiting. It's great to see the young people being recruited from social media. It's great to see them being able to express themselves. Because that's all young recruits want to do. They want to feel comfortable. They want to feel the ability to express oneself. And if you're not able to feel comfortable around your head coach, who you're going to be around for 4 to 5 years, around your position players, around the team, then you're not going to go to that school. And Gus Malzahn, the head coach for the University of Central Florida, they're doing a good job, and they're leading the way for the future when it comes to recruiting. Because if you didn't know, college football is all about recruiting. College athletics is about recruiting. Recruiting is so important in college football because if you can get the best young high school talent or junior college talent to transfer to your school, to come to your school, you're going to be successful. There's a reason why these schools like Alabama, Clemson, Auburn, Georgia, Oklahoma, Ohio State are always in the top 10 when it comes to ranking in the college football landscape and the college football playoffs. We always see them when it comes to big time games. You know why? Because they get the best young athletes all around the world to come to their universities, to come play for them, to come play because A, they're going to get the TV time, they're going to get the recognition for their talents, and they're going to get the ability to brand themselves and make their brand even better because recruiting is all about getting big-time players, and big-time players want to go to schools that can help their brand in the future, that can help them get that professional job or that professional sports gig they have always wanted, they've always dreamed of. And of all those schools, they should be taking notes of what Gus Malzahn is doing with social media and technology and when it comes to recruiting. Now, we've seen people like Jim Harbaugh at Michigan act all crazy and have sleepovers with the kicker and post on social media with his khaki pants and no shirt and flexing. And we've seen a lot of these guys, a lot of these coaches, ADs for college football, be able to express themselves on social media. But there's a new wave that's coming. And you're going to have to adapt or you're going to have to die. It's simple as that. You're going to have to adapt to the way technology and social media is being used right now. And of all of these schools, they should be taking note. Of all those schools I mentioned, they should take note of what UCF is doing. Because if UCF is successful and makes it to the college football playoff, if it's expanded, like I'll talk about soon, if it's expanded to 8 teams instead of 4, and UCF can knock off a powerhouse in the SEC or the Big 12 or the Big 10 and go deep in the playoffs and have a deep run and maybe win a national championship, if a smaller school like that can do that, then the possibilities for the bigger schools, for the Power 5 conferences, for the Big 10, SEC, Big 12, ACC, and the Pac-12, which we'll get more into later, if they can do that, if UCF can make a deep run, watch out. Because the door is going to be opened, Pandora's box is going to be opened, and the possibilities are going to be endless. You're going to see a lot of coaches turning to what UCF is doing. Social media is the wave of the future. You're going to see guys like Nick Saban, who coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide. You're going to see guys like Dabo Swinney, coach of the college football national champions Clemson Tigers. You're going to see them post on social media more. You're going to see them get hyphy and get crazy with those other kids trying to get their recruits. It's a new wave. It's a new wave, and you better be ready. Because it's coming, and it's coming fast. Especially in college football. And we see it in the NFL. We see it with all sports. Like I mentioned before, you either adapt or you die. Simple as that. Now, I know it's blunt, but it's simple as that. And it's going to be interesting to see how these teams are going to handle each other and how these teams are going to handle themselves. There's also some more news in the college football landscape, specifically the news in the West Coast, that I think is going to be really interesting. We got Pac-12 news, and it's not any news regarding like Pac-12 softball or Pac-12 tennis. We got Pac-12 football news. Now, I don't know if it's good news. I don't know if it's bad news. I'm going to have to wait, and we're going to have to wait. Now, I've stated before, on this podcast specifically, that the Pac-12 in general, should hire Oliver Luck, the former XFL commissioner, and we'll talk about the XFL later on. And we'll talk about the new leagues later on, but the Pac-12 commissioner should be Oliver Luck. And that didn't happen. It didn't happen because they made a decision, the Pac-12 committees, they made a decision over the weekend. And they chose someone probably no one who's ever heard of. And they chose this guy named George Kilikoff. Now, stop me if you've heard him before. You haven't. You haven't, because no one's heard of this guy before. If you say you've heard him before, well, A, you're either a football junkie, and B, you're either lying to yourself, because you haven't. I haven't. So this news broke last week. Kind of a bit of a head-scratcher, if you ask me. Now, John Wilner, who covers the Pac-12 for the Mercury News, had a great story on it. And for those of you who don't know John Wilner, he covers everything for the Pac-12 when it comes to football and basketball for the Mercury News down in San Jose, down in California, on the West Coast. He's up close and personal with all these Pac-12 teams, so he covers them and he has an unbiased opinion. Now, he's a reliable source for the Pac-12. Now, he had a great article about the hiring. And if I'm the Pac-12, if I'm the West Coast, if I'm a West Coast football fan, which I am, I'm based in the West Coast, I'm concerned. He really had a great article, Wilner. Wilner states that George Kilikoff's name would have appeared on a list of 25 possible candidates for the Pac-12 commissioner vacancy. Okay, but he would have been on a list of possible 50 or 100. That's how unknown this guy is. Now, that's just one's opinion. That's just his opinion. But that does not excite me as a Pac-12 football fan. The Pac-12 had a chance to zig when everybody was zagging. The Pac-12 had a chance to bring in a guy, a name that would excite people. A name like Oliver Luck. But in case zigging meant hiring someone with experience on a college campus or in college football, the fact is they didn't. Kilikoff has neither been on a campus experience or football expertise. He's from the sports and entertainment world with a background in media space. How is that going to help the college football Pac-12 rankings? How? I don't understand. Nothing in Kilikoff's background necessarily produces and precludes him from negotiating and reinvigorating the Pac-12 conference for football as a whole. Nothing. And positioning the conference for long-haul success, I just don't see it. I don't see how this man is going to be able to produce. Because for all that emphasis placed on football, success, and revenue generation, the Pac-12, first and foremost, must fix the culture. They must fix within. So much of Kilikoff's success hinges on his ability to get the conference moving together again and moving forward in a necessary way so they can compete with these other schools within the Pac-12, and they can compete better with those schools who are not in the Pac-12, who are in Power 5 conferences. Now, if you're a football fan, you know the Pac-12 is losing ground. If you're a Pac-12 football fan, you know football compared to other Power 5 conferences is not what it should be. ADs know. Coaches of other teams know. Coaches in the Pac-12 know. Players in the Pac-12 know. Media knows. And fans of college football know that the Pac-12 is losing ground compared to all these other teams who are out there. It's a sad truth, but it's a truth nonetheless. We all know the playoffs are about to expand to 8 teams. The transfer portal is about to get more chaotic. We got teams who are losing their players and they're transferring. These students are transferring from these schools and they're going to be able to play within the year. The players are about to get paid for promotion work via name, image, and likeness, like I mentioned before. Now, Kilikoff had his first press conference as the Pac-12 commissioner last Friday, and it honestly wasn't a total train wreck. He emphasized Pac-12 football. He kept it honest and said they need to pick up the pace. They need to not fall behind because they were. He's seen it. Now, you know what? I liked how he said that. And if I'm being honest, it's going to be difficult for him to get to get out of the hole that Larry Scott, the former commissioner of the Pac-12, dug for the football teams in the Pac-12. It's just going to be difficult for him to get out of that hole. Now, some people are hopeful, some are not. John Wilner listed that one industry source last week said the Pac-12 cannot follow up another experiment coming off a failed experiment. Larry Scott was a failed experiment for the Pac-12. It's just going to be flat out said. But it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. He said that the conference staff is lacking in important areas, and Kilcoff will try to solve the problem by bringing in expertise. Okay, he sounds like a politician there. It reminds me of a politician, because we all know how politics work, and people run for office, they get elected, and based off what they say during their election time. The idea of the future is what they hinge on. And they say a lot of stuff just to get elected. And they don't mean what they say sometimes. I equate it to a coach or a GM who just gets hired. Now, we all seen coaches get hired, and we all seen people say stuff when they get what they want. Coaches do it all the time. GMs do it all the time. Take example, a guy who just gets hired, coach from Indianapolis. He gets hired, and his first press conference, he says he's going to break some legs. He's going to have his team get all riled up and ready to play, and they're not going to be horrible. Okay, that's great. That's great if you want to win the press conference. But what are you going to do on the field for me? What are you going to do to produce? Now, they hold press conferences for the hiring of a new coach or GM, and they want to talk about what they want to do. They want to talk about their big dreams. They want to talk about their championship aspirations. They want to talk about their plans for their future. That's fine. That's dandy. That's great. But they never want to talk about what they're going to produce and how they're going to produce for results. Because it's all about producing in the professional sports and college landscape. No matter what sport you play. Football, basketball, baseball, soccer, or hockey. People want a winner, and people want a person who's going to be able to produce. But if they never produce any results, they can go back and look at those press conferences down the road, 2 to 3 years down the road, and they can go back and they can fact check. You can go back. You can see all these press conferences online on social media, and you can say, you know what, you said this 2021, it's 2025, and you still haven't done anything. You lied during your press conference. So they can fact check. So I'm just saying, if I'm Kilikoff, I best be careful what I say. I best be careful, and I try to be truthful and honest. Now, I'm going to give him a chance. But you better be honest. Hey, you said this in a press conference one time when you got hired. So what happened? You did something totally different 5 years down the road. I'm just going to say this. Mean what you say, people. Actions speak louder than words. Take that into account. Let that sink in. Actions speak louder than words. If you're able to win the press conference, that's fine and dandy. But if you're not able to produce, you're going to be in trouble. Mean what you say, people. Now, I'm going to give this guy a chance for the Pac-12 commissioner. I'm going to give him a chance because everyone deserves a chance. Everyone deserves a chance, and everyone deserves a second chance. Now, I'm a pretty positive guy. I like to think like that. I like to think I'm an optimistic. And I see what he can do. I've already seen someone fail. Larry Scott failed as a commissioner for the Pac-12. So I'm going to give this new guy, Kilikoff, a chance. Now, many of you might not heard of him. And many of you might not give him a chance. But that's all we can do as fans. I'm a Pac-12 fan. I like to see the West Coast football do well. And I'm going to give him a chance to succeed. So how is he going to be able to succeed? Well, you're going to be able to succeed if you're able to not do what Larry Scott did. I need to see improvement from the Pac-12 when it comes to schedules, when it comes to recruiting, and when it comes to the use of social media. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be drama-filled, and I don't know if he's going to be able to produce. But you know what else? I'm interested to see. And what else I'm interested to see is how this drama in the NFL is going to handle itself during the offseason, before the 2021 NFL season officially kicks off on September 9th. It's going to be interesting to see, and we're going to get right into it on the other side. Stay tuned.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hey now, what's going on? Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Bryan back here with you again. Now, in previous segments, we talked a lot about the NFL. We talked about the draft day sleepers and how some teams are being slipped on. We also talked about new faces in new places and familiar faces in familiar places as well. It's crazy to see all this movement in the NFL offseason. We saw a bunch of people move this season to new teams. It's crazy. We also saw that a change of scenery is always good for the athlete, for any person. We talked about that with Sam Darnold going to Carolina from New York and Teddy Bridgewater going from Carolina to Tampa Bay. And we're going to see that with these new teams. We're going to see how they're going to establish themselves as a whole. And we're going to see how these players from different teams are going to be able to create an identity and actually have a good impact within the team. We also talked about some players, specifically the Tim Tebow story, and how he's going to try to make a comeback after 10 years, and how I don't think it's not going to be feasible. It's going to be crazy to see if Tim Tebow is going to be able to make a resurgence of his career and play a different position. That's very hard to do. That not most people love to do. But we're also going to get into why, like I mentioned earlier, why the NFL is the most drama-filled series on television right now. So we got into all of that, and we're getting into more of the NFL. We got into some college as well, but we're going to get into more of the NFL. And we're going to get into why the NFL is the best drama series on television right now. It's the GSMC Football Podcast. Bryan here with you again. Glad you can join me today. Glad you can join us. Hope everyone's doing well. Happy Monday. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're able to start the work week off right. I know there's a lot of stuff going down in the world right now, but you know what? It's time to talk some football, so let's get into it, shall we? Okay, we're getting into it. Like I mentioned before, like I mentioned in other segments, the NFL is the most watched drama series on television. Now, some of you may be thinking, really? Really? What is his name? That's right. It's better than the Kardashians. It's better than any other reality TV show like Big Brother. It's better than, Survivor. It's better than all those other reality shows, The Real World, Beverly Hills 90210, any drama series like Grey's Anatomy or any NBC drama series. It's better because you know why? It's reality. And it's reality because these are our favorite people, our favorite star athletes. And it's crazy to me to see how any different day is different. Any different day is different because, A, when sports, you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. That's the one thing I love about sports. You get any different scenario. You get every different scenario every single day, and it can come up within sports. I don't care what kind of sports you get. The NFL, the Major League Baseball, NBA. You're going to get something you haven't seen out of any sport. And you're going to get something so crazy that's going to shock your mind. It's going to blow your mind. And you have that every single day. I've always said, when you turn on the channel, when you go to the arena, you're going to see something different that you haven't seen. And that's the beauty of sports. That's the one thing I love about sports, is that you're going to see something. You're going to physically witness something that no one's ever witnessed. It's a different day, and with different day becomes new opportunities and new presences and new people to prove themselves. And that's the one thing I love about sports. And that's the one thing I love about the NFL too. You're going to see something that you've always watched, that you love to watch. You're going to see the violent hits. You're going to see the cocky dances in the touchdowns and the end zone dances. And you're going to see people losing their minds over something that, like a big hit or a nice truck when a RB trucks a linebacker or a pick six. You're going to see something different every single day. But the thing I love about NFL football, the thing I love about all sports, is that you're going to see something new every single time that you turn on the TV, you turn on the radio, or you go to an actual physical event. That's what I love about sports, and that's what I love about life. You know, the definition of insanity is completing the same task over and over and over again, but expecting different results. Sports is insane. That you're going to compete to win, but you're going to get different results every single time. It's insane. It's insane what we go through as sports fans. It's insane what we go through as athletes and former athletes. But with that insanity, there's a method to the madness. There's a method to that insanity, and we love it. We can't get enough of it. And it's so drama-filled. It's so drama-packed. Now, it might not be life or death, but some people do think it's life and death. Because that's all we know as sports fans. We all know we live and we die with our favorite teams. I'm a Bay Area guy. I'm a Bay Area guy born and raised in the Bay Area, in the South Bay, and I'm going to live and die with my professional sports teams. I'm going to live and die with the San Francisco 49ers. I'm going to live and die with the San Jose Sharks. I'm going to live and die with the Golden State Warriors, with the San Francisco Giants. Now, I'm so on the Oakland A's, but I think they're out of town in a couple of years. But still, as a sports fan, you live and you die with your teams, especially with the NFL. Every game is a new chapter and a new series in the drama-filled series that is the NFL. And we love it. We love it and we can't get enough of it. And you know what? It's a great drama series because you have needs that it makes you want more. The NFL makes you want more, and that's why it's one of the greatest drama series in the NFL. It's also the greatest drama series in American television right now because you have so many diverse characters with so many personalities and so many egos. It's the most ego-driven league in professional sports. Now you can talk about, basketball might be egocentric. No. Football. NFL football is one of the most egocentric leagues, if not the most. You can put European soccer up there. But in American sports, it goes football and it goes basketball for the most egocentric sports because not only do the players have it, but the coaches have it, all that swaggerness and all that cockiness flowing through their veins. If you step on a football field, you're going to get trash talked and you're going to get that feeling of there's so much raw emotion, but there's so much swagger on this field. There's so much cockiness. Like, people are going to tell you how they really feel when you step on that field. And if you're a player, you're going to be told how you really feel. And it's awesome to see. But it's going back to the egos. There's so many egos within the NFL. And there's so many storylines within the NFL that we can look to. For example, one of the biggest egomaniacs in the National Football League, in professional sports, Aaron Rodgers. Now, he was one of the top topics within the NFL offseason, before the draft, during the draft, and after the draft right now. Aaron Rodgers has been on everybody's mind since that NFC Championship game last year when they lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, when they had a lead at home and they gave it away in the last seconds, and he had a chance. Aaron Rodgers physically had a chance to win them that game, or at least tie them and go to overtime. But you know what? The coaches took it in hand. And after that, we could tell he was upset. Now, we could tell upset before. We could tell he was upset before the season even started, when they drafted Jordan Love in the first round, the quarterback out of Utah State, and we could tell he was upset because they traded one of their picks to go up and get him in the first round to basically get his replacement. Now, I don't know about you, but if somebody drafted my replacement, and just ask yourself, if you're at work and somebody brings in your replacement and you think you're in the prime of your career, just put yourself in Aaron Rodgers' shoes. You're in the prime of your career. Now, you're 35, 36, that's back prime, but you still got it. You're in your prime of your career, and your organization says, hey, we're going to bring in your replacement. And he's just going to sit down. He's not going to play. He's not going to do anything. He's going to learn from you, and he's going to learn from the coaches. And maybe in a couple years, you're going to be moved out. You're going to be retired. You're going to go to a different team, and he's going to replace you. How are you going to think about that? How do you feel about that? I'll tell you how I feel about that. I would be pissed off. I'd be pissed off for many reasons. But A, I would still think that I still have it. Aaron Rodgers still has it. And that's what Aaron Rodgers thinks. You have to realize, he is 37 years old. There are people in this league, Tom Brady, who are playing quarterback at 43. 37 years old should be considered your prime. But you know what? The Green Bay Packers, they don't believe that. The Green Bay Packers didn't believe, and it was crazy to me that they drafted their number one draft pick 2 years ago with Jordan Love, quarterback out of Utah State. But some people may think they may have pushed Aaron Rodgers to win that MVP. No. They didn't know what they were doing. They weren't that smart. Trust me. Because if they were that smart, they would have let Aaron Rodgers do what Aaron Rodgers does and win them a ball game in the NFC Championship game. No. They're not that smart. They got pushed. They basically walked backwards into the Aaron Rodgers MVP. And it wasn't because of them. They could say, oh, we pushed him and we gave him the motivation. No. They didn't give him the motivation to go out and win that MVP last year. They gave him the motivation to go out and win because he was pissed off, because he didn't want to be there, and he wanted to take out his anger and his frustration the best way he could by dominating other teams and dominating other secondaries. Aaron Rodgers was one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback, last year, and it shows with he won the MVP last year. He took his team all the way to the NFC Championship with very subpar talent. I mean, you had a great wide receiver in Davante Adams, and you had great weapons in the running backs with Jamal Williams. But he willed that team. He willed that team to an NFC Championship, and he should have went to the Super Bowl, barring a stupid mistake from their coaching staff. And it's great because now you see the drama of Aaron Rodgers saying, you know what, I'm not really happy here. I'm disgruntled. And honestly, I heard John Clayton on the other day, ESPN Radio, formerly of Seattle Seahawks, coverage of them. He's the guru. He's one you can trust in the NFL. I heard him say something really interesting. And he said on the radio in San Francisco, on with TKB on KNBR 680, he said that he doesn't see Aaron Rodgers being able to stay in uniform, and he doesn't see the Green Bay Packers being able to retain Aaron Rodgers after this year. Maybe not even this year. But it's crazy to me that the Green Bay Packers don't even think they can retain him because they signed 3 quarterbacks already to the roster. You can usually only have 3 on your roster already. And you're telling me that they want Aaron Rodgers back and he wants to be back when I'm seeing something totally different? It's like I mentioned before. You got to mean what you say, and then you got to act on your words. If you don't act on your words, you're not going to be successful. Green Bay's not acting on their words right now. Green Bay is saying something and doing something totally different. Yeah, they're saying they want Aaron Rodgers back, but then I look over here and they go out and sign 3 different quarterbacks. 2 of them we don't even know of. They signed Blake Bortles. Are you kidding me? You really want to keep Aaron Rodgers and you really want to keep him happy? Here's a way to keep him happy. Maybe sign players from free agency that can actually help him win on offense. Maybe sign some more players to help out Davante Adams on the wide receiver. Maybe sign some more running backs and don't let one of your star running backs leave for free agency. Maybe help your quarterback then. The only way you can keep your quarterback happy is signing players and helping him through the draft with young talent. He's not happy in Green Bay. He already said he's disgruntled. And honestly, I don't think he's going to last in Green Bay another 2, 3 to 4 months. He's already packed his bags. He already went to Los Angeles, and he wanted to get that Jeopardy job when Alex Trebek resigned from Jeopardy and passed away. R.I.P. Alex Trebek. But still, he already knows what he wants to do. And you know what? I'm hearing signs that he might get traded to Denver. Now I'm just going to put the pieces together. Aaron Rodgers disgruntled. Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to be there. The Green Bay Packers, they brought in 3 quarterbacks and they signed already. So you got 3 out of 4 quarterback spots open on that roster. I'm just putting pieces together. It seems to me that if they have Jordan Love already and they have 3 quarterbacks they just signed, one of them has to go. And the one who they're going to let go, the MVP of last year's league, that might be the wrong decision. But I'm hearing they might have rumblings of trading him to Denver, because I know for a fact that Aaron Rodgers' fiance lives in Denver, Colorado. Coincidence? She lives in Colorado. The next best professional sports team? The Denver Broncos. Now, you can say, oh, Teddy Bridgewater is already there, but, he's unproven. He really is. You're telling me if you're Denver, you're going to take Teddy Bridgewater over Aaron Rodgers, who still has it, who won the MVP last year? I'm sorry, you're not. You're going to take Aaron Rodgers all day, every day. Because like I said before, you're going to take the best player available. And when an MVP comes knocking at your door and say, let me in, you're going to take him all day, every day. Now, it's going to be interesting to see if they trade him, but he said he wants out. Now, he may not mean it to the media. The media may portray it differently, but he said he wants out, and I can tell that Green Bay knows he wants out based on their additions of the 3 quarterbacks they just signed, along with Blake Bortles and having Justin Love there, or Jordan Love, excuse me. He wants out, and it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. Another person, another big-time name who supposedly wants out is a big-time wide receiver who many people know as Julio. Julio Jones of the Atlanta Falcons. He supposedly wants out. He supposedly wants to be traded to a different team. Now, I'm not sure if these reports are real, but some people say that he will be able to get a deal done within the next couple weeks, maybe even months. It's crazy to me how Julio wants out of Atlanta. Now, we all watched the Super Bowl when Tom Brady came back from 28-3 and Atlanta blew that 28-3 lead. They were never the same before. They're never the same again. It's crazy to me how a big-time superstar talent in Julio Jones, who may be the best wide receiver in the league, wants out of a good situation with good people on offense. Now, some people may say Matt Ryan's washed, but just look at the weapons around him. You get Matt Ryan, and you give him some protection. You will give him not only Calvin Ridley, but a monster in Kyle Pitts, who they just took for the 4th pick overall in this year's NFL draft. You tell me how that team is not going to score 40 to 50 points a game if you have Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, and Kyle Pitts a game. They might lead the league in scoring. That's how crazy it is. Now, Atlanta's problem is defense. It always has been and always will be. Until they get a prime defense, until they get a prime pass rush, they're never going to win the big one. But you know what? Sometimes a good defense is one's offense. So when you're boat racing teams, when you're scoring 40 to 50 to even 65 points a game with all the firepower you have, if I was Julio Jones, I would rethink my decision on trying to leave. Now, some reports have stated he's not trying to leave. They've stated that. But you get deep down, and sometimes things just happen, and sometimes people just need a new change of scenery. We've seen it with many different players in the NFL. We've seen it with Cam Newton. He needed a new change of scenery, and from Carolina to New England. We're seeing it with Sam Darnold. He needs a new change of scenery with the Carolina Panthers coming from the horrible, toxic relationship that I mentioned before with the New York Jets. And Julio Jones seems like the type of person who needs a new change of scenery because he's been through it. He's been through hell. He's been through the ringer and back. And you know what? He deserves better. Everybody seems to have this idea that, oh, Julio Jones is the best wide receiver. But how is he going to be able to prove he's the best wide receiver if he's not going to be able to win the big one? He kind of reminds me of a better Calvin Johnson. It's crazy to say that because Calvin Johnson was a Hall of Famer. But Calvin didn't have the type of skills that Julio had. He had the body, he had the frame, he had the ball skills. He was a perfect receiver. And I thought he would have been way better with a better scheme. I mean, he did have Matthew Stafford, but it's just sad to see that his career whittled away in Detroit. I'm sorry for Calvin Johnson that he wasn't able to get to the big one. But Julio has a chance to get to the big one. Julio has a chance to win it all. And if he still stays on Atlanta, he might not be able to win it all. Basically, not on his control. You're not going to be able to do everything on the field. But if you go to a contender, like Baltimore, I don't think he's going to do well there because of the quarterback situation. He can't throw. But say you go to a contender, maybe Miami. Maybe you go to a contender like San Francisco, who has a quarterback who can get you the ball on consistent basis, on week in and week out basis, and you can be the prime target in that wide receiver core. It's going to be crazy. But you know what? He's going to come at a cost. If I'm trading for Julio Jones, I'm at least trying to get all these other core value players and then some. I'm trying to get at least 3 first-round draft picks and maybe a 2 and maybe a 3. But I'm trying to get 5 to 6 draft picks. They're not just going to deal him willy-nilly. They're not going to just deal him for a bag of chips and a soda. No. Atlanta is too smart. Atlanta is too smart, and they know what's going to happen. They know they're going to get a haul for him, so they're just going to sit back, relax, and enjoy the drama series that is the National Football League. Because it is a drama series, people, and it's the best drama series out there. Well, that's all the time I got for today. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. But before I go, remember, please subscribe to our channel and leave a nice comment. That really helps us out. And follow us on social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We post daily on GSMC Football Podcast Networks, on our Twitter handles, and we also follow us on the GSMC Football Twitter handle, GSMC/football. And we have great tweets out there, and we tweet daily. So follow us on those platforms. Thanks for listening. I'm Bryan Iglesia. Be well, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you on the other side.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.